All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials World podcast. And you know what, Brian? I've been thinking, right? I think you and I can both agree that we really love the guys who just wear those kill your local or like hang your local or like trip your local pedophile t-shirt. Do you think those guys are cool, Brian?
Pediatricians, pedicurists. I don't understand. It seems really like, these don't even seem like guys that would be thinking about pediatrics or pedophile. I suppose if you pushed me to it, I would say that I broadly support not pedophiles. And so in the broadest sense possible, I guess me and the kill your local pedophile guys, at least ostensibly, have something in common.
No, absolutely. I remember I originally thought it said pastafarians, and I'm like, wow, people hate pastafarians this much? But that's the thing though, Brian, right? Is that we hate those kind of people so much. Do you think it would be kind of cool if we maybe shot a sting operation that got these guys in a house and then we kind of made fun of them and then they got arrested immediately? Do you think that'd be interesting, Brian?
Well, I can tell you, it would definitely be helping innocent children. It would be keeping people safe. It would basically be showing support to our men and women in uniform. If we catch some of the sickos, we get our hands dirty, we get a few of them off the street so that, our boys in blue, girls in blue, they can do other things. And I'm sure they'll be really thankful for us. They'll probably deputize us.
No, absolutely. And, without further ado, that will be the introduction to part one of our predator catching series with inarguably the best version of this, which is to catch a predator. Really the only good version of this. There's never been a good version of this besides this TV show.
The only good version, and calling it or calling Chris Hansen good, I know that might sound weird if you only know To Catch a Predator or you only tangentially know it. You're like, good, I don't know. It's kind of a weird show, right? Kind of voyeuristic, kind of like corporatist legalism, whatever. But what it does, it is objectively the best at it. Its offspring are some of the most heinous content creators in the world.
No, absolutely. He is the definition of lawful neutral. That is for sure. That is Chris Hansen.
Yeah.
He is lawful neutral. But yes, so let's get into it. But before we get into it, Brian, let's bring back our segment, Cringe Generational, Cringe Millennial
Moment of the week.
Woo! Yeah! All right. And Brian, I did give you a fair warning that this was going to be a very disgusting, cringe person. This is maybe the most disgusting thing I've ever chosen for this show. But I have to bring this individual up because he is a convicted sex offender against children. So relevant to the show. But as I told you, the sex offenses against children is arguably the least heinous thing this guy's ever done on the internet. So I was browsing Instagram the other day, and there's this guy who, and to be fair, there's a couple of these counts, but this is just the first guy I saw doing this, where he tries to have a stone cold face while reacting to horrible audios. And I found one of a gentleman by the name of Tom Pearl. Are you familiar with Tom Pearl, Brian?
I was not until you mentioned him. I avoided doing any sort of research at your behest.
Good, yes. And I won't get too in depth with what he likes to do, but I will just say that he loves filming himself eating and drinking his own waste. That's all I'm going to get into it. It's disgusting. I looked up his name online, and there were TikTok links that were just videos of him doing that. And I'm like, they have it on TikTok of a guy just doing this on video? Craziness.
The content creation, the algorithm game, the social media thing, it's the biggest it's ever been. That reflects some very good things about modern society, I'm sure.
No, absolutely. And, like I said, I won't get too much into the audios, but he gets very in-depth with it. And he said he got into this as a child because, and this is his own words, I don't believe him, but this was his own words. He says as a child, he was so hungry that he would eat his own waste to stop being hungry.
No, that's
fantasy
not real. That he has. That's a fantasy of his.
Absolutely, it's a fantasy. In fact, when you hear or listen to the audios or watch the videos, which I would not recommend, they are fucking disgusting. I will tell you that he does not sound particularly like he's liking it. It definitely sounds more like a humiliation thing. I'll just say that. And Brian, would you believe it? A man who is, once again, a convicted sex offender for possessing cheese pizza, literally eats his own waste on camera for people to make fun of him. Guess what? This man is married. This man is a married man.
There's hope for all of us, I guess. Jesus Christ.
I think he also has an adult daughter, too, which is even more insane. This man is a father and a husband. And also, he's just so infamous on the internet that, of course, trolls found where he lived and they posted his address on the internet, of course, too.
We love to see it.
Absolutely. So that's as in-depth as I want to get with Mr. Thomas Pearl. But, speaking of getting in depth with other predators too, Brian, let's get into our subject this week, which once again is To Catch a Predator, the original run from 2004 to 2007. Now, I did upload it to the Drive. Did you get a chance to watch watch any of the episodes, or are you just going off of memory?
Only got to watch a few just because busy doing stuff for Easter weekend at the time. It's Easter, or just recently Easter at the time of recording.
Praise be to Allah, real quick.
Praise be to Allah. Best Easter in generations, I would say. I did get to rewatch some early episodes, but also I'm pretty familiar with TCAP. Yeah, I watched it when it first aired, and I've revisited it. So I should be good. I should be pretty good in memory, too.
No, absolutely. Same. Like, I have watched off and on clips and episodes and recaps and everything for years and years and years and years. So for me, this is like fucking secondhand knowledge. So just a real quick introduction. So TCAP was introduced originally as Dangerous Web in 2004 to 2005. I can't remember. I think it was 2004. And eventually, it was originally Stone Phillips. It wasn't even Chris Hansen, which is crazy to me because like Stone Phillips is a very stone cold man. He's not a very interesting figure. Whereas Chris Hansen is like just stoically normie, that he's fascinating in that way. Whereas Stone Phillips, not so much. Yes, exactly. Honestly, Chris Hansen is fucking hilarious on this show at times.
Yes.
But eventually it got picked up as an actual production with a house, the Predator watchdog group, Perverted Justice. It became other groups later on, but Perverted Justice was the watchdog group in the beginning of the show. And it was, I can't remember the main guy's name, but the female assistant of his, or I guess, co-worker, counterpart, whatever, was Dell. And Dell is hilarious in this show because she is the worst decoy ever. Just the worst fucking decoy. Comes up with the worst things to say ever. Like, whenever Predator shows up, she's always like, oh, I banged my toe on the banister. I need to put a Band-Aid on that real quick. And this is supposed to be like a 13-year-old girl's like, yo, bro, I gotta put a Band-Aid on my toe real quick. And it's like, what the fuck is this?
When you see this original decoy and you see how bad of an actor they are, and you think, how did these guys fall for this? I mean, they fall for this at so many points. They just want it that bad, I guess. It's like being catfished, like, traditionally catfished. You just want it that bad, I suppose.
No, absolutely. And another interesting connection, Brian, is that Perverted Justice was started in Portland.
Figures, it should be. This is the right place for it.
No, absolutely. But yeah, so eventually, once again, they had, Perverted Justice, they had the house, they got the host, Chris Hansen. The first two investigations, the very, very first one in Long Island, I believe, the guys didn't get arrested ever. They just literally showed up and were made fun of. In the second investigation, they got arrested, but later on. And then in the third investigation, that's when they were arrested on site, which is baffling to me that was not ever the entire idea that these guys get arrested immediately. That's mind-blowing, because once again, these guys are showing up to meet fake children decoys online. These people were willing to come to this house and rape a child, and you're not willing to arrest these guys immediately? Baffling to me that was not the original idea. And some of the most heinous predators came from these early investigations, like straight up, like episode 2 in, I think, Loudoun County, Virginia, I believe was the second investigation. They're literally like in the top 10, there's like half of them are just in this investigation alone. Those guys didn't get arrested until later. Baffling. That was the investigation that included the, I think, pediatrician who showed up to molest a kid.
Oh.
There was one who was a rabbi. There was one who had a chat that is still one of the most disgusting things, like Tom Pearl level fucking heinous. And then there's another guy who showed up naked, and then the next day he showed up to the same sting operation, but he showed up to a McDonald's instead. Like, these are some of the worst of the worst predators the show ever had, and that was in their second investigation. It's crazy. It's disgusting that they were never arrested immediately. And then, the third investigation was in San Bernardino County. Yep, it was San Bernardino County, and it was originally headed up by the sheriff's department, and there was a guy named Chad Bianco. And hilariously enough, Brian, the guy who led that investigation is now the sheriff of that county, and he's a huge Trump guy. Would you believe it? Now, to be clear, though, right, we're not saying anti-pedophile activity is a Republican thing. They love pedophiles. They just say they hate pedophiles. That was the whole kill your local pedophile joke, because I can tell you what, if a guy's wearing that shirt... They're trying
to get rid of competition.
Absolutely. Those guys are all pedocons, for sure, all pedocons. Abso-fucking-lutely. And then, there were some other investigations, but the San Bernardino County was the most they ever got. I think they got 52 guys in 48 hours. Like, it was crazy how many guys they caught.
Pouring in there.
It was either 50-ish in 2 or 3 days, but that's literally like one guy an hour. That's how quick they were fucking catching these guys. And the other thing is, though, too, is that there were other investigations later on where there was like an AT&T downage that some people genuinely believe was orchestrated by like pedophile organizations online, like sort of dark web stuff. And including one where I think that was the one in Dark County, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken, where there was literally like a bulletin on certain dark web forums being like, hey, the fucking TCAP guys are in town, so watch out. And it's like, how the fuck did they figure that out? Like, before this was even reported in like 2005. Was there an insider in Perverted Justice, or was there somebody on TCAP's crew that warned them? Like, crazy stuff. That's genuine genuinely
not
disturbing
impossible,
to me.
yeah.
That's like, oh my God, just fucking crazy. But either way, this show was fucking nuts. It went on for about 2 years. I believe there were 10 total investigations, about 20 episodes total. Some episodes were like, two-parters. There were some specials here and there. And eventually the show ended up in Murphy, Texas. That was the most infamous single investigation because they got a assistant district attorney who got caught. I can't remember his name at the moment, but he eventually did not show up to the house. In fact, he cut off communication. But what a lot of people don't know is that even the communication part is illegal in basically every state, even if you don't meet up. The actual communication is so. The cop showed up to his house. It was a very bungled potential raid, and the guy killed himself. And because he was an assistant DA, the entire legal system in that fucking county not only fell apart, but also kind of came after Chris Hansen and the crew. And it was just a total legal mess. It destroyed the show. There was lawsuits from family members who said that violation of his civil rights, whatever the fuck, right? But yeah, that was the thing that ultimately led to the destruction of the original iteration of TCAP. But, by the time the show came out, it was a fucking phenomena. I remember going to middle school and high school, and everybody was talking about this fucking show. Can you believe what these guys fucking did?
In the hallway at the lockers the next day.
Yeah, this was we were talking about monoculture in an earlier episode. This was a quasi-monocultural moment. If you were watching the news, you knew about To Fucking Catch a Predator. This was a huge TV show. This was probably the biggest thing outside of fucking Lockup that MSNBC ever did, to be honest. It's got to be up there. Eventually after TCAP shut down, Chris Hansen, went on a bit of a hiatus, but he eventually came back with future shows, which include Hansen versus Predator, which I believe only ever had one city investigation in Fairfield, Connecticut. But there's also some great, hilarious Predators from that investigation. That has some of the best Predators too. Remember Jeff Sokol, Brian?
King.
It's she's 14. Well, 13 actually, but that's neither here nor there. It's you admitted to a lower age? What the fuck? Or even showing up to the decoy house with a pepperoni pizza and orange juice? That's psychotic itself. That's a prison sentence. Who the fuck eats pepperoni pizza with orange juice? That's disgusting.
That is absolutely a dead giveaway that someone is a threatening pervert if they make that pairing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, there were some great, hilarious Predators that came out from that. And then there were some other ones. There was a very, very small investigation that happened in Georgia. I think they only caught 4 or 5 Predators, but there was one guy who was serial killer in the making, so I'm glad they got that guy. And then eventually there were some other ones. There was True Blue, and that's when the investigation started to get really sloppy on Chris Hansen's side. There was one, I think, in Michigan specifically, where the security was so weak that one of the decoys actually got their ass slapped by one of the Predators. It was getting real lazy, and I frankly stopped watching after that because I'm Chris, you're getting sloppy. At that point, he was kind of getting desperate. That's why I said the lawful neutral thing, because he wanted to get as much footage as possible. Didn't really care about safety much anymore because say what you want about MSNBC and TCAP and of course with Crime Watch Daily or whatever the YouTube platform was with Hansen versus Predator, but those guys at least had they wanted to have their legal liability protected, so they didn't want to get the decoys too close to Predators. But by then Chris Hansen's on his own, and he's just getting desperate as the shit's getting lacking, and
we got to get the money shot.
Got to get the fucking money shot, exactly. And obviously all these people are getting brought into these. These are all detestable people. 99% of them are fucking detestable.
I don't think anyone here legitimately turned out to be innocent, or it was a misunderstanding or a setup. I have not heard of any of these guys panning out that way.
No, absolutely. And to be fair, there are some guys who didn't get convicted, but those are pretty much all on legal technicalities. Just straight up all legal technicalities. In the Murphy investigation, for example, none of those Predators actually got convicted of any crimes just due to the fallout of Louis Conrad killing himself or whatever that guy's name was. And there were some others. There was 1 or 2 here and there in each investigation that they just got the fucking judge or lawyer of the century that got them off of any prison time or whatever. But all of these guys are
judge.
Yeah, liberal sicko judge, as we said in the fucking Reign Over Me episode. Just liberal sicko judge from that fucking movie. To be fair, once again, Adam Sandler movies all have liberal sicko judges. I swear to God, if there is a judge in that movie, they're always that's hearsay. Judge's I'll allow it, but as long as I get to see the kid get molested first. That's literally every Adam Sandler.
That'd be such a great Adam Sandler bit.
Yeah. But no, just straight up. So everybody who's ever been caught in these things, at best, they exercise poor judgment. And at worst, they are the worst people on the fucking planet that you would ever meet on a daily basis. Just disgusting, degenerate, vile predators. That's what the fuck they are. And, some of the commonalities with the Predators. So, Chris Hansen has a theory that there's 3 or 4 different types of pedophiles. And basically everybody in the show fits some demographic of them. So there were a couple of them who were kind of on the younger side, 19, 20, 21, who who, you know, once again, their judgment is just fucking skewed. They're still pedophiles, obviously, but like there's still potentially a level of some rehabilitation just because they're so inexperienced and they may not be attracted to girls their own age. Once again, I'm not saying that's good. To be very clear, that's still bad, but you know, there's still a chance for rehabilitation. There's, you know, the sadistic predators who of course will just be predators their entire fucking lives. And thankfully a lot of those guys did get more of the severe sentences because they were like repeat offenders. There's the opportunistic ones who, you know, they may not want a kid, but they found a kid and that's just what the fuck they're gonna do. And then there's just a mix of, the losers, exactly. And then there's just the ones, this is the fourth category I'm gonna call it. Basically, and I'm just gonna be real here, there were a lot of Indians on that show who got caught. Just like guys who very, very fucking clear, and I'm not necessarily just Indians, but just like foreigners in general, or like guys who were clearly mentally challenged. That was definitely a subsection of predators too, like guys who you could tell have like a 70 IQ, or like guys who like literally just came off the boat wherever the fuck they came from, and you're like, oh god, you got fucking suckered into this. It's genuinely hilarious. And to be fair, there are some guys who are like, you know, highly educated, like in the San Bernardino arrest, there's Walter Babst, who had, I would argue, maybe the best post TCAP career, because at the time he was a high school teacher, and of course he's trying to pick up a 13, 14-year-old. He looks exactly like Ned Flanders. People call him the Ned Flanders predator. He looks exactly like Ned Flanders. And later on, he got fired as a teacher, obviously, and he got divorced, and I don't think his kids talked to him. But eventually he became like a researcher at an aeronautics facility and got a massive pay raise and promotion after that. Like, he was doing fine.
You hear about failing upward, but rarely do you hear such a brazen case of failing upward as this.
Yeah, exactly. That's real white privilege right there. And also that was the same investigation that had this one guy who, he just showed up and he was very clearly on drugs. They found like a fucking meth pipe in his pocket, and he's just like, you know, if I was over here about to have sex with a kid, wouldn't I have taken a shower, dude? I'm fucking disgusting. Look at me. That guy, though, he actually eventually ended up having an okay career because he was like 20 or something. Once again, this is not okay. This is not appropriate, but there's still a chance for rehabilitation when you're that young and you make a stupid ass mistake like that. So whatever. And, you know, Chris Hansen, I think that was the closest Chris Hansen came to interviewing one of these guys on his podcast, the Predators I've Caught podcast, which is an amazing podcast, by the way.
It's one of the best podcasts I've ever heard, truly.
Exactly. And I'm not really a big fan of like recap shows or like, you know, those nostalgia shows, but like that's one of the good ones for sure. That is a solid fucking podcast. Great fucking podcast. And I could just go into a million of these guys because honestly, there's so many memorable moments from the show. There was that one guy who was a troop and he was going to get deployed to Iraq in like 2 weeks. And he showed up and like immediately he just shows up and he meets one of the better decoys on the show's history. And he's just immediately just like drenched in sweat. The second Chris Hansen shows up, the guy is literally like, he like is literally taking a shower at the time he's that drenched in sweat. And then he's like, you know, what brought you over here? My friend Kevin brought me over. And he's like, yeah, what's his last name? I don't know. He's
my friend Kevin, fake name.
Yeah. And then eventually he reads the chat and he's just like, you know, you're afraid of being seen on TV. Are you afraid of being seen on TV, or have you watched a TV show like this? He's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you're about to be on one. And then it pans over to him and he's like crying. It's awesome. It's so fucking good. The New Jersey investigation is amazing. There's so many good ones. Remember Anthony Palumbo, the guy who's like, you know, I'm not gay or anything. Put that B in the fridge.
Oh, he keeps saying it.
I think they call him Gay Romano. He's got some great lines too. That guy.
Unprompted, he can't stop saying it. And it's like, that's the least of your problems, dude.
I was just going to Atlantic City. I'm not gay or anything. He's so fucking hilarious. I mean, once again, we're laughing at guys who are objectively here to rape children. They're not good people, but there's some genuinely hilarious moments, these guys flailing. It is a great watch, just to watch these guys fail bad.
If you've ever enjoyed lolcow content but thought maybe you should feel bad on some level for laughing about Chris Chan or Daniel Larson, TCAP is the most pure, safe, most guilt-free lolcow content possible.
No, absolutely. And, you know, once again, it's one of those things where you can make fun of these guys and then they get arrested at the end of it. So it's fucking awesome. And we're going to do, of course, multiple parts to this series, at least 3 parts, but we're going to get later on into the later predator hunters. And those people are literally almost just as bad, sometimes even worse than the regular predators, because they like get in the way of these investigations and make sure these people don't get fucking arrested. Like, that shit gets bad. And like I said, we'll get more in depth into some of those people later on. Because like, once again, this is the only good version of this. This is the only good version. Every other version of this style style of like predator catching content is always bad. Just literally never good, because these guys never get fucking arrested because the people who are making this content just want to beat up people who get caught in stings and then they don't get arrested because there's entrapment narrative here. It's horrible. You know, it's one of those things where I remember you covered something, Brian, on a Cringe Generational segment where these college students tried to catch a guy trying to hook up with an 18-year-old. Remember that? Underage 18-year-old? And they beat him
Awful.
up. Guy was like 20 or something. Like there wasn't even an age gap. It was ridiculous. It was the dumbest shit ever. And of course, thankfully those idiots got arrested. But at the same time, it's just like, there's just so much exploitative content with that. But, you know, going back to the other exploitative content, Brian, of course, we're going to get more into some of the depths of these kind of shows later. But do you have any particular notable predators or moments from the show that you wanted to highlight too?
So my favorite guy ever is the aspiring country music guy. I used to know him by name. It keeps escaping me now.
Lauren Armstrong?
Yes, who keeps saying Miss Vagina and Mr. Penis, which is so disgusting because it's so, like, you are absolutely talking to this child like they're a baby. So there is no chance that you think that this person is like mature for their age or anything. You're literally, like you would say to a baby, is Miss Vagina ready to meet Mr. Penis? And it's so insane. He genuinely thinks that he's got like fans because TCAP is popular and people like to post memes about it. And he's like, oh, those are my fans.
Well, and that's the thing though too, when it comes to like the lolcow content, like most of these guys after they got arrested, I mean, a lot of them were not super computer literate and, you know, a lot of them didn't want to be obviously associated with this TV show, but Lauren is the only one I can think of that genuinely became like an actual lolcow. Like Lauren Armstrong is still the most famous predator to ever come onto the show for that reason. And that was Bowling Green, Kentucky. That investigation didn't have many predators. I think it only had maybe like 10, but like all of them are incredible. Like the most memeable piece of shit predators on that show. There's only like 10 of them, but there were so many memorable ones. Like there was one guy who was gay, and like I watched the interrogation. It was on Dreading, I remember, like quite a while ago. The guy's like, no, I thought he was an adult. And one of the interrogators like, you asked him if he still believed in the Easter Bunny. Like it's like so obvious.
Oh my, disgusting. So beyond the pale, disgusting.
No, and then there was this one guy, he didn't really say too much, but he was also another aspiring country musician, hilariously enough. But his nickname in the TCAP, like predator making fun of community, was Lurch, because he was like 7 feet tall. And the only thing I remember is that he literally goes in the house and immediately makes a beeline to the decoy. Like not even a word. Like it is the most serial killer like, horror movie shit. Bad shit. And like the reason he was going there, he's like, well, I was bored of my wife and our swinger lifestyle, so I wanted to hook up with a kid. And I'm like, this is horrible. This is disgusting. You know, another thing that's interesting about the show too, right, is that like, you know, of course we're making fun of these guys. And people are like, well, what about female predators? There's never been a female predator showing up to these stings. That's literally never happened.
My theory on that is that the producers specifically are not interested in bringing in like female predators because they're concerned about the sympathy factor or something. They know that if they get guys, that the entire audience is going to be on board with just like ranking them out. So they want to stick to that. That's my theory.
I think there's some of that too, but you know, and Chris Hansen has a theory that I think is generally borne out by research, although I think your theory does have obviously a lot of credence too. But Chris Hansen's theory and, like I said, general, you know, psychological profile of predators is that male predators, you know, just like with male and female sexuality, and of course there's so much diversity with all the genders of sexuality, but stereotypically speaking, men kind of like the thrill and the anonymity and the sort of spontaneity of sex to a large degree. So they were like, oh, I met somebody online and they want to fuck. I'm going to fuck right now. Whereas women like to have a connection with it. And of course, if it's a predator, it's a perverse, disgusting connection, but they like having that connection. That's why oftentimes if women get caught in these things, it's usually like a student teacher or like babysitter kid thing. It's like, there's a lot of reasons why women tend to veer towards that style of predator. And it's also why it's harder to get that type of predator convicted, to be honest with you. Because like if you build that connection, the kid is less likely to think it's weird or bad. Whereas if a guy meets a kid online on the fucking forum and rapes them, I mean, there's obviously some grooming there, but like, let's be honest, it's pretty easy to be like, oh yeah, this happened. We have a paper trail to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easier to convict that way. But no, I think your point makes sense. And there's actually been a couple times where women have shown up or were about to show up. Like, you know, there was that one guy in Florida. He's like, you know, role playing chat room, dude. He's like the really bad kind of hot couch guy. He was that like 2000.
So he is such a hot couch guy.
And like his, I think, sister showed up because he told them they were going to bring this girl to a party, but the girl's like, wait, she's a kid? He said she was 19. And like, you know, she sounded pretty horrified, so I believe she was telling the truth on that one. Or there was one in Georgia, I think it was Georgia, where this guy was like, hey, I'm going to bring my part-time girlfriend over and we're going to have a threesome. And she was like, yeah, I'm not cool with this. We're not doing that. So that didn't end up happening, but there was some chatter in the chat that allegedly that she was going to come. But I also think that he was like lying about her being into it.
To make the decoy feel safer.
Exactly. I think that was bullshit, but that could have potentially happened. But yeah, either way, there's never been a single female showing up to these things. It has always been men. Always been men. And like I said, we could just get into every fucking predator on the show, but like there's so many just incredible fucking moments from the show that are so quotable. Like I'm on, I think, 2 different subreddits for like TCAP and like, you know, Chris Hansen versus Predator stuff. And there is like every predator has a quotable moment on the show where you're just like, how is this not like some sort of cringe millennial comedy that would be on like Adult Swim or something? Like this is incredible. This is so wild that every guy has a line. It's
the type of thing that it's so perfectly insane and awful that it's impossible to satirize, to be honest.
No, it is. It's like one of those things where it's just like, it is so candidly awful that like there is no actor ever who would sign up to do this as like a bit. Like there have been allegations that, and I believe some of those predator hunting shows are fake, obviously, but like, you know, TCAP and, you know, fucking Hansen versus Predator and stuff. But it's like, no, these guys are just like so detestable that I don't think an actor could improv these lines or make it sound meaningful enough if they said them with like a script in front of them. They're that fucking baffling. Like, you know, there's another guy who was in, I think, Long Beach, who was like, no, I wasn't here to meet up with a kid. And he's like, well, you're here. And he's like, no, I was going fishing. I was going to stop at the fishing store and get fish. And it's like, Chris is like, well, you certainly got some kind of bait by showing up here. And he's like, no, I was just going to go fishing. And it's like, no, come on. You're not there to go fishing, bro. Like, come the fuck on. Like, why would you show up at some random person's house if you're going to go fishing? What the fuck?
The lies are so pointless. I mean, like, obviously most people are not as good at lying as they think. But these guys, my favorite are like when Hansen walks in and the guy's got like his belt buckle undone and he immediately goes, I was just coming in here and having a slice of pizza and then my belt unbuckled. So I was just about to buckle it up and then leave.
They are hilariously bad lies. There's never been a single good lie on any version of To Catch a Predator or Hansen versus Predator. There's never been a single good lie ever. If there's one guy who's actually capable of lying his way out of it, I would love to see it, but that's just never happened. Or, you know, one of my favorite ones are like the guys who play dumb. And obviously they all kind of play dumb. But the ones who play dumb were just like, oh, I was just checking to see if this is real. I'm leaving. Like, that's my favorite kind of guy. I was just looking to see if it was real. I'm leaving now. Goodbye. And they think that's going to work. Like, there was that one guy in, I think there was 2 of them in Georgia, where there's like this like black guy who I think was like a pastor at his church or something. And he's like, oh no, I was just seeing if it was real. Goodbye. And he's like, wait, I want to talk to you. He's like, no, I'm leaving. Goodbye. And then immediately gets arrested and tased. It's hilarious. We were talking about obviously all the predators, but of course the decoys too. Like, so, you know, of course, early on, Dell was the first one. And, you know, she later went on working in Facebook, I think, if I'm not mistaken. She ended up working at Facebook in their like safety division. And I'm like, well, she did a great job.
From catching predators to enabling predators.
Yeah, really, right? And then there were some other ones. There was Kayla, who, you know, Kayla to me is like, I would say maybe the best TCAP ever had. Because, you know, she was very small. She was young, but she was an adult. I think she was like 18 or 19. She had some like acting experience and like she would kind of engage with the predators on like kind of a personal level. Like she would try to like have conversations with them and try to get a little details out of them. She was a very, very good decoy in my opinion. Like basically nobody was ever like, who the fuck is this fake bitch? You know what I mean?
Must have an improv background.
Yeah. And, you know, hilariously enough, this is interesting is that in the New Jersey sting, the house that they used was actually her like familial house. Like it was like her grandfather's house or something. So like they got this like prime like $1 million+ real estate on the ocean that they were able to film for this one sting for. It eventually got like destroyed in a hurricane or something, I think. But that's a very interesting one because, you know, she is once again trying to engender like some kind of like rapport with these guys in a house that like she grew up in. It's like wild to see. You know what I mean? Like this is her home environment. She's inviting these predators in there. That must have been really scary for her, to be honest. I respect her a lot for keeping her cool.
Her home, maybe she feels more like empowered because of that. I don't know.
Potentially, there's definitely that possibility too. And, you know, once again, TCAP had really, really good security. Like none of the predators ever like physically touched the decoys, which was great. There was just general better security because once again, it was MSNBC. They had like professional security on staff, whereas the other later productions, of course, didn't. But, you know, talk about the decoys once again. There was one male decoy who actually actually later on became a newscaster in like the Midwest somewhere, I think. He was so fruity. Like, he was like, yeah, let's get in the tub right now. Like, let's take off our clothes. He was really like a great decoy. Like, he was just zesty enough to be able to get away with it without being a little too convincing. Yeah, and he's got like the blonde swoop. Oh, that guy was great. Such a fucking good decoy. And then there was one in the Georgia Sting, and I think another one who was fucking terrible. She was awful. She was like very young looking, but still like a very young adult. And like every time they'd be like, yeah, let's put a terrible wig on you so you look really fake. And like one guy came in who was just like, yeah, I kind of figured it was weird because like you could tell she was wearing a bad wig. And I'm like, I shouldn't have even fucking walked in here. Like, even if the Predator's like, yeah, that's clearly an adult in a wig. This is, what the fuck is this? And you could tell like the look on his face is like, wait, who the fuck are you? Like, it's just hilarious. It's so fucking funny. Yeah, some of these productions got a little haphazard.
The level of like immediate understanding that these guys are fucked, it's so satisfying to see the looks on their faces where they're just like, and normally, you know, you don't enjoy people suffering or the end of their lives like this. These horrible perverts, these horrible degenerates who are also just the dumbest people in the world, just seeing the light fade from their eyes in real time.
No, it's absolutely fucking fantastic. I only want to maybe highlight two more decoys because a lot of the decoys aren't super interesting, but the one I really want to highlight from Hansen versus Predator in the Connecticut investigation is Nervous Nellie. Now, Brian, you know about Nervous Nellie, right?
I had to think about it for a second. I absolutely remember who that is.
So yeah, she's fucking fantastic. I would argue, like, along with Kayla, is probably the best decoy they ever had. She's a really solid actress for that kind of role. She, I think, was like 19 or 20, maybe 20, 21. So still young, but she looks young.
She plays a convincing child. Like, really drives home how disturbing these guys are, because she's like not acting like, you know, doing a baby voice, but seems like just kind of like a
inexperienced,
kid would act,
aloof.
Inexperienced, doesn't understand the situation they're in.
No, she's really fucking good. And there's so many moments from even just like the 10 guys they caught in that investigation, but she's really good in all those. But there's one that I really want to highlight too. Obviously, the one of the two other decoys on there, the male one. Remember the male decoy? Oh my God, that guy's fucking horrible. I think maybe the single worst decoy that show ever had. Holy shit. That was the guy who was like, who lives here? I live here. Me, my mommy.
My mommy. I was like, is he like pushing the limits of bad acting because he's bored? Is he trying to be funny or?
So from what I remember, and this is from quite a while ago, I heard it on the Predators Are Caught podcast, I think is where this was said. But I believe he was like a deputy cop, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was somebody who was like in training to be a cop. So like this was like some 20-year-old dipshit who had no experience, but they're like, we need a guy at the last minute in case we have gay predators. I think that's literally what happened. But like he's an adult, but like he looks like a guy who has like a mortgage and 3 kids. Like he's the worst looking 20-year-old
my mommy
ever.
And daddy.
This guy looks like he could be my dad, but he's like me, my mommy, and my daddy. Like it's so fucking bad. That guy sucks. And you know what's funny is like the like one gay guy who actually came in to talk, he was literally like, and that's why he asked like who lives here. This guy caught it immediately. This was a sting. Even though that guy was a dipshit, he still caught it was a sting. And then he's just like, yeah, I thought it was weird, but like, you know, I was just here to meet friends, I guess. And it's like, no, you weren't. No, you fucking weren't. Predator looking to meet a 14-year-old and you were just mad this guy had a bankruptcy in the last 7 years. That's what you were mad about. You saw the Vietnam War happen. He's that fucking old. But yes, so those are the decoys. And then, you know, like I said, the show eventually got destroyed due to the suicide of Bill or Lewis Conrad or whatever the fuck that guy's name was. And, you know, there were quite a few predators that did get convicted. I think the most significant sentence ever was, I think, 50 to life, if I'm not mistaken. And that was Jean-Pierre Weary. Do you remember Jean-Pierre Weary, Brian? That was a wild
Not
predator.
my name.
So he was caught, I believe, in the San Bernardino sting, if I'm not mistaken. And he was a guy who had several convictions already, so he was going to get the 3 strikes law. That's why he got like 50 to life. And he shows up, and it was like 11 o'clock at night or something. And Chris is like, so what brings you here today? He's like, well, I'm here for a job. And he's like, for who? And he's like, John Pedersen. So John Pedersen. And he comes up with this like elaborate lie for 20 minutes that he's looking for a job. And eventually he becomes Scott Pedersen too. It's awesome. And then he wrote a bunch of stuff in the chat where, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I used to shoot gay porn movies. And I also have experience being on the crew of Kindergarten Cop, which is also a hilarious lie. And Chris Hansen asks him like, so did you say you used to work on gay porn films in Kindergarten Cop? He's like, well, I've seen Kindergarten Cop.
Which is roughly the same thing.
Hey, to be fair, Brian, we went to the school where they filmed Kindergarten Cop when we went to fucking Astoria once.
We basically were part of the crew for Kindergarten Cop. Agreed.
Exactly. 35 years late, but we were there. We got there eventually. If that's the case, I was there when they filmed filmed the first Silent Hill game because they based the school off the Silent Hill off the school and kindergarten cop. So there you go.
We were real pioneers.
Absolutely. Jesus Christ. But yeah, that guy got the most severe sentence, I believe. And like I said, he got 50 to life or something. It was like a lifelong sentence. He's never getting out of prison. And then, most of the guys, though, only got like handful of years. Some only got like 6 months. Like, I think all the Ohio guys got like a year or less in jail. Like, that was really fucking shameful. The ones in Georgia all got like super severe sentences in comparison. Like, I think one guy got like fucking 20 years in prison. Like, those guys in Georgia got the fucking book thrown at them, which,
yeah,
I'm not going to make judgment either way, but I don't feel bad for those guys either. To be very clear.
One of the few times that the harsh penalties of the rural South were deserved.
Exactly. And most of those guys who got caught were white. So that gives a little bit of an interesting dichotomy there. I mean, there were a couple black guys. I think the most severe was 20 years. I think one guy got like 10 years. And that was one of the guys who was like just on the floor crying. His username was was like a Joe Biden ass username. Like it had like a bunch of digits at the end. Yeah, it was all fucking word sound. I mean, some of the usernames are fucking wild in themselves too. Like, my favorite ones are when Chris Hansens says, a username so graphic we can't say it on television. And it's like not nearly as severe as some of the ones he does say for shock value. Like, one of the ones he said once again on national television was, can I rape you anally? That was one of the usernames for this guy. So, the one he couldn't say was bald beaver hunter, which is more severe.
Yeah. So there's a few, even though like fuck these guys and the show is greatly entertaining, fuck all the predators, it's entertaining to watch them get their comeuppance. There are some weird questions that I think are raised in retrospect by this series, and one of them is there are times when Hansen on network television is reading these chat logs that are so explicit that it feels like dirty. Like, obviously these aren't real kids, but when you're reading them understanding that the author intends them for a child. So it's effectively exposing you to this pretty graphic scenarios involving what are supposed to be children.
No, absolutely. And like, when Chris is reading these out, he'll always say, I want to blank your blank, or would you like to look at my blank? I want to blank you right here. And he does it like his newscaster voice. And obviously these are like hilariously quotable moments for like a newscaster to be like making fun of these guys who are about to get fucking arrested and beat up on. But no, you're totally right. Like, these are meant for like children. And then one of the other more disturbing elements of the show is that they'll oftentimes use like decoy photos, obviously. And like the decoy photos are almost always, especially in the original run of TCAP, are like pictures of the crew who worked on the show when they were children. Yeah. And some of these photos are like wild. Like, there was this one in, I think once again, San Bernardino, where they used for the female decoy. And it's a girl who I think was 12 or 13 at the time. And it's like when she's celebrating Christmas. And it's like just the idea of like a man who's looking at a kid who's wearing like Christmas pajamas or like a Santa hat and getting hard thinking about it is so revolting. It's disgusting to think about that. And like, these guys are fantasizing about this. Once again, a child who is celebrating the most fucking probably magical day of their year. Just horrible. It's awful. Like, it's one of those things where it's like that guy got like 6 months in jail and you think like, God, I want to fucking see this guy tortured. You want to see like CIA torture shit happen to these fucking guys after realizing that. But, obviously, once again, that's why normal people don't determine the punishments, because if that was the case, you'd see these guys get flayed in public. You know what I mean? Like, but obviously that impulse is totally normal. If you feel that violent impulse, that's a normal thing to feel, obviously. It's just that you're
supposed to feel that way about people who prey on children.
Absolutely. And that's 100% a totally understandable viewpoint. We're not saying you shouldn't feel that way. Just saying don't do that. Don't go to prison for these losers. The justice system will deal with these people. Don't go to prison for doing that. That's all we're going to fucking say. Don't become the Alaskan Avenger and then you end up in prison yourself, okay? That was another Predator Hunter story I might have as a cringe generational segment later on. Not saying that guy's necessarily cringe, but you know what I'm saying. But no, either way, so yeah, there's a lot of different elements of this show, and we could just go on for fucking like 15 hours about it. But I think I've mostly exhausted what I want to say about the show. Do you have anything to say before we wrap things up here, Brian?
So one of the things that I think is most interesting in retrospect about this series, and another thing that we are fans of the show, it's, first of all, it's very entertaining. It's also objectively the most ethical and most well-produced Predator Hunter show in that sad genre. But there is something, I'm not the first person to point this out, about like a corporate major news network collaborating with law enforcement. In some leaked behind the scenes footage, there have been like footage that's leaked of Hansen instructing the police of like how to act, how to like hold the guy down to get the best shot. Something troubling about that, right? Something kind of troubling about, no sympathy for these guys, of course, but sort of a weird libertarian thing where like Hansen presents this, NBC presents this, or NBC did present this as news. It's not really news. You're just watching a bunch of perverts get owned because it's funny and you hate them, which is fine and entertaining, but there is no socially redeeming journalistic quality to these. This is absolutely trash TV. There are some scary moments in terms of the amount of influence during this production that NBC had to influence the law enforcement they were working with. It raises some interesting questions, I think.
No, absolutely. And that is a great point too. Like the general consensus, and you're just totally correct, but the general journalistic consensus is that this is very much editorializing. This is very much about getting a like just shocking spectacle. It's not actual journalism necessarily. I think the earlier shows were definitely more of that, like when it was like still like Dangerous Web or whatever the fuck. But by the time this got really streamlined and the arrests started happening and the staging of the arrests and the, you know, tight editing to make these guys look as insanely embarrassing as possible, it is definitely not news anymore. You're not actually reporting on a story, you're sensationalizing. And at the same time, we do need to obviously, as you very eloquently put there, like we do need to make that a very clear statement of fact, obviously. But at the same time, it is one of those things where it's absolutely trash TV, but is insanely entertaining. It is insanely entertaining. And I can see why that this led to an entire cottage industry of much, much worse people making what they think is similar content, but objectively is not. So it's one of those things where this is, once again, this is by far the best way of doing it. I don't think that anybody, even if they had a journalistic background, ever made something even as close to as ethical, even as frankly unethical a lot of this is. And, you know, it's one of those things where we're not really going to address it either, but there have been some allegations that this is entrapment. This is not, no matter what contrarian kind of edgelordy guys think, this is not entrapment whatsoever. Because the whole thing is that with perverted justice in this particular show, they always just exist and they get approached first. And as long as you get approached first and as long as the idea of the sexual part comes up from them first, that's not entrapment. Just being a 13-year-old child online is not bait. That's not how that works. You're just a child on the internet. That's just how that fucking works. You being a minor on the internet is not an invitation for harassment of any kind. So that's the definition of not entrapment, objectively speaking. And even if it's like, well, you know, they pretended, so they showed up, like, but that also doesn't mean anything. You can pretend to be anything on the internet. It doesn't fucking matter. And to be fair, these are once again a minority of guys who, let's be honest, a lot of these guys probably just want justification for their fucking weird thoughts or whatever.
Classic libertarian.
And, you know, to be fair, once again, as long as you don't act on those impulses, just keep it in your head, whatever. I don't want to fucking hear about it, but if that's what you fucking think, whatever. But the second it starts becoming action, that's when the fists and that's when the arrests start flying. That's just how that shit works. You know, it's one of those things where the criticisms of the show are totally valid, outside of obviously the entrapment one, which isn't a valid criticism, but the editorializing and sensationalizing are totally valid criticisms, but you're totally right. It's trash TV. I'm absolutely glad it exists, and it has given me years, if not decades at this point, of hilarity. So I want to leave it there. Like I said, we'll come back with multiple parts later on that detail the most disturbing aspects of this genre, but we will leave that for a later episode because I do need to do a bit more research on that because I intentionally avoid those like the plague. So I'm going to have to do some in-depth research with those later on, but either way, that will be the end of our TCAP retrospective here, and also Hansens vs. Predator to a certain extent retrospective here. So without further ado, let's get into our pluggables. So you can follow me at Carlos Chantor on Twitter.com, and as well, feel free to subscribe and follow us on both our YouTube and our Spotify channel, where we are uploading every episode simultaneously to both platforms. And as well as always, you know, I've been plugging this one now for I think 5, 6, 7 episodes now, but I have my own personal YouTube channel called Tailoring Your Budget. I am still working out the kinks on uploading and editing my video content for that, but expect to have an episode for that within the next coming weeks to months. You know, at this point, I am fun employed due to my budgeting skills, so I've been kind of spending a lot of time having fun and taking vacations. This is the thing with my fucking life. I'm about to take 2 international vacations back-to-back months, so that's the kind of fun employment I'm having with my savings over the years. But either way, with my YouTube channel, I will, you know, discuss various issues when it comes to personal finance, my journey, how you can save, etc. But it'll all be stuff that is generally practical, non-reactionary, non-ridiculous advice. So if that interests you, please subscribe, follow, and like my content on both TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And, you know, just stay tuned. One of these days I will come out with a video and come out with some shorts. I promise you. I eventually will do that.
Truly looking forward to it. I say it every week, but Taylor is the most, for as long as I've known him, he's been most like budget-oriented, planning-oriented, just rational like planning, aiming to be able to live comfortably at a young age. For as long as I've known him, that's been his whole deal. So I'm really excited to see his content on Tailoring Your Budget because it's what he was made to do, truly.
Hell yeah. Thanks for that, man. I'm really glad to fucking hear that. So yeah, I'm very excited for what the future holds on that. And then, you know, speaking of things that the future holds, you know, of course, we have been plugging this one forever, but the Lucifer and the Father crowdfund. Now, as far as I'm aware of, we don't necessarily have a distinct date, I don't think necessarily, but we're eventually going to get one of the guys on there, of course, the legendary Scott, who will be on an episode of ours, I think fairly soon. But either way, we'll have one of them on the show soon. But, as we always say with the Lucifer and the Father campaign, of course, they're great friends of ours, Scott, Sean, Robert. They're creating a fantastic series. At the moment, I believe they're still doing post-production on episodes 2 and 3. Is that correct, Brian?
Yep.
Absolutely. So good to hear on that. We're very excited for when those episodes finally come out as well. And, just like as we always say with the crowdfund, just send us YouTube comments, send us an email just showing us proof that you donated, and we will, within good reason, about 10, 15, 20 bucks or so, match those donations because we want Scott, Sean, Robert's dreams to become a reality. And like I said, stay tuned for a future episode with Scott where we will discuss something that he is very passionate about, and I know I definitely have a certain amount of passion for too. So I'm very excited
to be great.
Have our thoughts on that because it's just a great topic in general, as we always come out with great topics. And speaking of things that are also very topical as always, of course, the Luigi Mangione Defense Fund and Luigi Mangione himself, I think the last thing I heard, there hasn't been too many updates recently, but the last thing I heard is that the federal prosecutors are trying to get the federal trial going as soon as possible. And as we said, that's a sign that things aren't going great on their side. And, to be fair, maybe we'll come out with another crowdfund because the Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk killing also seems to have some holes in it recently, no pun intended, with the evidence, the physical evidence that's going with that. But either way, we'll hold off on that for now until that trial comes out because even though, of course, Luigi didn't do it, he's completely innocent. There's no compelling evidence that he did it. But with Tyler Robinson, there's a bit more. So I just want to hold off on that a little bit. But either way, with Luigi Mangione, he's a good guy. He's fighting the good fight. His struggle is essentially our struggle. He just has better chances, more money, and more support, and he's hot as fuck. So we also need to support him for that reason because, as we're going to talk about in the future Incel episode, we believe in lookism. You know what I mean? Like, we're betas. We're just beta sissies.
I am an alpha. I'm a looks maxer. I'm a giga chad. And real recognized real. Taylor, I'm sorry, but guys like me and Luigi, we got to stick together.
That's true. I should be honest. I'm the only beta. In fact, because we don't have video podcasts, Brian in real life is actually clavicular. Can you believe that? To be fair, though, I don't think there is a millennial clavicular. Clavicular is very Zoomer. Maybe the most Zoomer personality I could fucking think of. Like, Jesus Christ.
And to be clear, millennial clavicular is mystery.
I would say the millennial clavicular was Aziz, but Aziz was aspirational, though. I respect Aziz. I respect Aziz a lot. Rest in peace, genuinely. Like, even though he killed himself at an early age due to his steroid use, but he was seemingly a very nice aspirational guy who was we can all ascend. We will all be Chads. You just have to try hard enough. You will be a Chad.
The best possible looks maxing advice.
Absolutely. Instead of 0.1% of people will ascend. Jesus Christ. How not aspirational is that? But either way, speaking of people who are once again aspirational. So once again, just like with the Lucifer and the Father campaign, with the Luigi Mangione Defense Fund, just send us an email, send us a YouTube comment showing us you donated, and we will, within good reason, about 10, 15, 20 bucks, match those donations as well, because we want Luigi to have the best possible trial. And speaking of people who have trials and tribulations and will definitely not get convicted on national TV of trying to meet up with a minor, we have a great Patreon page. We don't have any patrons at the moment, but become our first patron today. When you're talking to your coworker who walks into work with the give a swirly to your local pedophile t-shirt, talk to him about, yeah, I totally agree with that. Remember To Catch a Predator and how great that show was? It was really good. And that guy will be like, yeah, I totally want to grind those guys in a fucking meat grinder and then eat them and shit them out and then stomp on them.
My bread.
Exactly. And you'll just be like, yeah, that's really normal. Just curious, can I look at your hard drive? And you'll be like, no, you can't look at my hard drive. You can't look at my hard drive at all. And it's like, okay, fair enough. But either way, listen to these guys' podcasts and you can hear about their opinions on TCAP 48 hours before everybody else. Because as we always say, the first 48 hours are the most important. Just like with the TCAP guys, if they had 48 hours to jack off and think before they got on those chat logs, they would have never gotten arrested in a sting. Think about it. It's one of those things. And to be fair, once again, there are so many different types of predators in these kind of guys. But how many of these guys, I would guess low single digits, but there were definitely some of them who had just, if they had jacked off first and not got online, they would have never gotten caught up in a sting ever. Just being honest, that could have been a couple
Post-nut clarity.
Absolutely post-nut clarity. But that's the thing, you will never have post-nut clarity if you become a patron of ours today, because you'll always have clarity because we have such good opinions. So feel free to give us money and become a patron of ours today. And then Brian, do you have any pluggables as well?
As always, you can always follow me personally at JLoBiafra on Instagram and Threads. Additionally, please follow the show at Millennials Are Old Pod on Instagram and Threads. That remains the best way to reach us relative to the show. If you want to harass us, if you want to make suggestions, if you hate our take, if you have inquiries, possible world-changing business deals for us. If you want to do a Gamergate on us, Millennials Are Old Pod on Instagram and Threads is the best place to both assault me and to see the new episodes go live on your social media. There is also the Facebook page that's just Millennials Are Old. If you want to see, check our followed pages, you'll see a treasure trove of kind of raving boomer content. Although lately it's kind of shifted from political content to just boomers talking about nostalgically about how much better their pop culture was, which, embarrassing, but I can't hate on them too much for it.
No, absolutely. So definitely follow all of our socials on that as well. And, speaking of people who definitely could have benefited from more social interaction, I think that ends our episode on predators. And Brian, I have to catch up on my sleep because I haven't been sleeping very well recently. Have you been feeling that way, Brian?
Awful. Sleeping, mostly just because I'm so busy thinking about To Catch a Predator and how I wish I could have been the decoy. I feel like those decoys were so lucky because they got all of the attention of being noticed and complimented by the creeps, but they also didn't actually have to be harmed by them.
No, absolutely. And in fact, I think that my lack of sleep is starting to predate on my credibility and my just general energy. You know what I mean? Like, the less I sleep, the more that my tiredness predates on my existence. I just hate it so fucking much. And I'm hoping Chris Hansen comes and sings me lullabies to sleep. Maybe one day Onision and Chris Hansen can make up and they can both sing me lullabies. I don't know which one would disturb me more, to be honest. I mean, I know which one definitely would disturb me more, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
I'd just be like, wait, both these guys are in my room singing me lullabies? I thought I only watched fucking Pornhub videos that featured this. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, either way, have a good night, everybody. Sleep tight, and we'll come back with a great episode for you next time, as always.